Welcome into another edition of Hoopsville, the week of Thanksgiving. Thanks for taking the time. I'm your host, Dave McHugh, coming to you from the NABC studios, in part thanks to our friends and partners everywhere, including D3Hoops.com. If you got questions for us whenever we're not on the air, especially, you can always email us, hoopsville at D3Sports.com. That's hoopsville at D3Sports.com. You can also find my personal email address on our website, D3Hoops.com. You can also tweet us at D3Hoopsville, use the hashtag Hoopsville. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. We're even on Instagram at D3Hoopsville, though we haven't been able to use it as much this year due to some random circumstances. We'll try and start using it a little bit more often. Hard to share links through Instagram, so it ends up kind of falling to the side for me, but we'll do our best to use it a bit more often. We are into the Thanksgiving stretch here, and quick note for anybody looking for a new top 25, it will come out the Monday after Thanksgiving. Just with the earlier start to the season, games are spread out a little bit more. Want to kind of settle in and see how teams have been played, or how teams have played for as many games as possible to try and be as even as possible. You know, the NESCAC starts late, and some teams like Mary Hardin Baylor, who we mentioned last show, have a huge gap after playing 3 games. I know the WBCA came out with their first in-season poll, but nonetheless, there's also, I think, something about making sure we have the same number of polls, and with a earlier start to the season, that number would change, but that's maybe just semantics in the grand scheme of things. But the new poll will come out. In the meantime, I finally got out my preseason ballot in stages, and I really apologize for my tardiness on that. I had written it literally days after I put in my ballot with the intent of putting it out, but then got distracted with a very busy crossover season, and the next thing you know, I hadn't done it. So then I got the first one out, and then I'm like, I'll get the second one out tomorrow. And I was literally driving to an event going, well, I didn't do that today. I'll get it tomorrow. And then 3 days passed, and the rest is history. So we got it out. Yes, it is dated. And yes, I'm clearly looking inaccurate with some teams. And that's the toughness about preseason polls. You're reading the tea leaves, trying to read things. I'll give you an example. It looks like Trinity, Texas is without their best player from last season for whatever reason. He's no longer on the roster. He was a transfer from a D2 in Colorado Springs. Why? I have no idea. Injury? Maybe. Something else? Who knows? But he's not back. So that changes your equation of who Trinity, Texas is. That's just one example. Sometimes, as I've mentioned numerous times over the years, transfers come in, things look great, and they aren't gelling, especially right out of the gate. So maybe you misread how that would work. Or there's a team that we just didn't see comes together real nice, and we don't realize the talent that they have because it's hard to read on paper, and they become kind of a team to watch. So, yeah, my top 25 is kind of full of muck to some degree. Wish it was better. It's not. We'll continue. We'll get our first chance to start fresh, as it were, coming up on Monday. As I talked about in those blogs, I really kind of went, not blind, but I tried to use as little reference to the previous season outside of data that I could. I didn't look at my top 25 ballot from the end of last season. I didn't look at the final top 25 from the end of the last season. I kind of knew where a couple teams obviously stood, but I didn't know where everybody stood. And so I tried to go in fresh that way. I'm not sure that was the best idea, to be honest. I felt at times like I needed that information to better understand what I was reading into in the data. And there were times I think I misread teams as a result. It's neither here nor there. Just a preseason poll. It's just I'm one of 25 opinions. That's why we have 25 opinions. Everybody has a different one. I'm not sure what I'm going to do on Monday, or going into Monday. I'm not sure if I'm going to try and still kind of take it fresh and not look at what I've done in the preseason, which I'm very more likely to do on this poll because my preseason ballot's a disaster. I don't know if moving forward I'll do that where I don't reference back to the previous week. Normally what I'll do is I'll literally write out my top 25 on a pad, then go down through every single team and mark how that team did. Win-loss, overall record, notes about who they played, etc. And then I'll reevaluate my top 25 from there. I've been debating about just going fresh and not looking at who I had where. There's pros and cons to both, and I'm not sure. I might try both and just see where it goes. I think, for example, this first poll, I may just forget what I did in the preseason altogether, meaning no writing down on the pad where I had everybody slotted and just go with the data I have in front of me and see where it leads me. Gun shy a little bit that it may have steered me in the wrong direction during the preseason, but we'll see. That's the most likely time to do it. There's maybe one or two other times when you're trying to start fresh during the regular season to do that, but we'll see. We'll play it out. I haven't made a decision. I have a few days to make that decision, obviously, and we'll get to that bridge when we get to it. On the women's side, I'm not a voter there, but certainly keep tabs of things. I want to thank both of our panels on the last show for coming on. I thought it was a really good in-depth conversation from everybody about teams out there. Probably one of the better ones we've done. I'm looking forward to moving forward with those. We'll do one or two more in December with everybody to get their sense of things, and then we'll kind of make it much more of a routine thing in January. Again, it's about having enough data to understand, having seen enough teams to understand, et cetera, et cetera. Quick look. I don't have all the updates here because I am neck deep with a lot of things, including personal ones. So I'm not able to give you a full update on top 25s, but on the women's side, Hope is obviously off to a strong start. This is coming out on the 22nd of November. They've got a game tonight against Wisconsin Lutheran. That'll be certainly interesting to watch. Not much we can kind of gauge off of Transylvania. They haven't had any games until this past weekend. How they're doing, what they're doing, what's going on, et cetera, is always a tough call to try and figure out. We talked about that on the last show, especially Gordon mentioning they could easily end up being the number one team in the country with no real test. They got past Concordia, Texas, 66-45, and they got past Texas, Dallas, 57-43 down in Texas. This coming weekend, they'll play Wilmington and somebody else. You know, we'll see what this all means. And the rest of the top 10, I think, is one worth looking at, worth watching, worth trying to figure out. Teams are just starting to play games, honestly. NYU's off to a 4-0 start. That's pretty good. Whitewater's off to a 4-0 start with some strong wins, including against Illinois Wesleyan last week. Trinity, Texas, women are off to another strong start. No surprise there with a big win over Sul Ross State, 91-56. And I just mean by the spread, got past Howard Payne, 72-59. They've got Hardin-Simmons coming up in back-to-back games, believe it or not, this weekend in an interesting twist. Trying to fill your schedule. That's, we'll have to talk to Cameron Hill about those kinds of decisions. Christopher Newport, women spanked my alma mater 120-23. Thanks. That happened last week. We're supposed to play William Peace. That game has been postponed. And we can get into some of those decisions in some schools that we're seeing around. But Bill Broderick's team looks pretty good. We talked about Smith last week with Lynn Hersey with a big win over Bowdoin, 59-54. They got a good game with Trinity, Connecticut coming up. I'm just looking at the top 10. Trine, a little bit of a break here. They'll take on Ohio Northern coming up soon. Amherst finally out of the gate. They got a win over Springfield on the 11th, a win over Rowan on the 13th. In games that were maybe a little closer than you would anticipate, they got a bigger spread win against Gordon on the 16th. A large break. Big game coming up against Emmanuel. And then they'll play New Jersey City. I think those two games will be good ones to see how they're doing. I'm looking forward to seeing Gromacki's team back at the D3 Classic. We'll have them taking on Montclair State and Kenyon. Those should be great games in Vegas. Scranton under new head coach Ben O'Brien, off to a strong start at 5-0. Nothing really stands out in terms of, look who they beat. Though they did beat Wilkes 70-32 and Kings 80-42, bigger spreads than maybe I would have anticipated, especially for a first-year program. So not too bad. On the men's side, Randolph-Macon did get its first loss of the season. They lost to Mary Washington 58-52, got back on the horse, as it were, with a tight win against Hampden City in a rivalry game, 61-59. We'll have to watch the Yellow Jackets. I think they're trying to still learn how to play the game without Buzz Anthony kind of running things on the court, and that's not a surprise. That's where everyone thought they would struggle. Will they still be the number one team next Monday? I don't know. I am not even going to guess. There's part of me that says yes, because I expected them to lose this season. And Mary Washington is certainly not a bad team. The question becomes, what do we think of everybody else? Again, Mary Hardin-Baylor hasn't played since we talked about them last. Oshkosh is, let's see, they're now what? I've lost track here. They lost to St. Joseph's. They beat Nebraska Wesleyan. So they're what, 3-2, I think. I'm saying that because I just totally forgot. My notes are incomplete, and I apologize. Calling up Oshkosh. Yeah, we're taping this stuff somewhat live too. Yeah, 3-2 with losses to Calvin and St. Joseph's. We'll talk about St. Joseph's in a moment. Oshkosh, okay. I don't think they're looking as great as we all thought they would. Christopher Newport's looking great. They're continuing to roll along, though they had to get to overtime against W&L before then easily dispatching Susquehanna. They've got their own tournament coming up this weekend on Thanksgiving weekend. I wouldn't say there's any huge games in that, including Sarah Lawrence on the 26th. They'll play Methodist before that. And then on the other side, if they get a chance to play Eastern, I'll be fascinated to see how that takes shape. Oswego off to a strong start. They've got a really tough game on Tuesday the 22nd against Nazareth. It's from what I'm gathering, and I'm talking to a few coaches in the East, it looks like it's the Nazareth, Rochester, Oswego story right now in the East. Maybe somebody else from the SUNYAC can step into that conversation as well. But that Rochester, Nazareth, Oswego, and of course they're all near each other. I think that little trio is one that to keep an eye on in the East, and we'll see how Oswego does here against Nazareth. Real quick, now that I think about it, Nazareth, I believe, and I could be wrong here, but I believe Nazareth. I know they played Rochester. I just can't remember if it was a preseason game that we don't have any record of. No, they played regular season. Rochester got the win 75-69 in that one. Rochester, Luke Flakurtzy always has a good team. Again, it's that trio in the East. Williams finally off to a start. They are 3-0 with some easy wins. Worcester State 79-60. Clark Summit 98-54. SUNY Delhi 95-68. I think the conversation about scheduling and testing yourselves will always come up with this. I see both sides of it. The NESCAC has to fill a lot of holes, which is why I think they ought to change their conference scheduling. And so they have to fill with whoever will play them to some degree. But I do wish we would see some more challenging opponents for teams like Williams, especially early on. I know they start a little bit later, but still, they did start November 15th this year. But if you look at their schedule coming up, they've got St. Lawrence, RPI, SUNY Oneonta. I'm just looking at non-conference games. Springfield and Clark. They'll play Wesleyan in a non-conference game too. Anna Maria and Vassar. Okay, so there's maybe one or two teams in there that I take note of. Otherwise, it's just a conference play. So, nothing against Kevin App or anybody else out there. I just wish the schedule was a little bit more competitive. And I think that's going to be a theme for Williams the rest of the season. Mount Union continuing to play well. Got a win over Juniata, 78-66, maybe a little tighter than maybe some would expect. They'll play Worcester right before Thanksgiving. I don't know why you're playing the night before Thanksgiving. Maybe there's a tradition there. I don't remember. But that'll be a good game to watch on that Wednesday night. WPI continues to play well, though they're not playing as well as I think I expected them to. Tighter games, but still win. Again, Maine Farmington's not going to tell you much, and then they got a win over Emmanuel, 74-62. Stockton, interesting. They're got a good test against Rowan on Tuesday to start conference play. That's the one I'm going to be watching. Their win over Penn State Harrisburg was tight. Their win over DeSales was overtime. We talked about that. I think head coach even talked about it on Twitter. I kind of retweeted that myself. Apparently not playing with two starters and maybe some other guys banged up. That could be a large portion of the story there. And so the question becomes, do we think they're a top 10 or even a top 25 team now? Doesn't mean they might not be in the future. Johns Hopkins has licked its wounds from its loss to Christopher Newport with wins over Salisbury, York, and Lycoming. The Lycoming game a little bit tighter. I got a chance to see them in person against Gettysburg, so I'm looking forward to that. And just quickly outside the top 10, there's Rochester sitting at 11. We'll keep an eye on what they can do as they're off to a 5-0 start. And certainly a team that maybe I should have been put in my top 25 and hadn't. And so on and so forth. So, and real quick, I want to mention St. Joseph's because I thought they really have had a strong start to the season. A win over Yeshiva, granted not the Yeshiva from last year, but a win over them. A win over Babson, a win over Oshkosh, and a win over Illinois Wesleyan. It was noted that by them that they had defeated 3 former national champions in a week's time, and I think Bob Quillman was able to discover on Twitter one other occasion it took place, not surprisingly, in the WIAC, but inside that 1 week time. And actually, I think it was a 5-day stretch when there was basically wins over 3 previous national champions. It's a rare thing to do within a week. So hats off. I think Ryan Scott then went out and found that the most wins over a previous national champion was 7 in an entire season. And you could have added 8th, I think, if I read his tweet right, if you counted who would eventually be a national champion. You have to go find Ryan Scott. I know I retweeted it, his tweet about that. So interesting developments on the men's side, and I think it's going to be fun to watch as we break Christmas and we start getting break Thanksgiving, head into Christmas. We'll start getting a much better sense of what's going on, who to watch, and all of those things. I know that was one of the questions from our friend Chip Snively. As one of his questions was, big upcoming holiday tournaments and matchups. Yeah, we've already had some really good matchups in November. We're going to get some really good ones coming up in December. Looking forward to seeing how those play out. I'm not going to go and give you a full list of them because we'd be here for a while. But conference play obviously starts up for a lot of teams, and that is kind of a key to watch a lot of that stuff, and so on and so forth. So yeah, a lot coming up, and looking forward to seeing how that works out. Chip has a few other questions to ask. We'll get to that at the end of the show as well. But if you ever have questions for us, remember you can tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. You can always email us, hoopsville at d3sports.com as well. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/Hoopsville, where you can send us questions as well. So lots of ways you can get a hold of us, and looking forward to that. By the way, things have quieted down on the coaching front after 3 men's coaches on the in Division III all resigned in a matter of days. I have heard back from one of them, though that conversation is going to remain between us for now. To be honest with you, I'll have to read it a few more times because I don't think I quite understood everything behind it. I felt a little cryptic, even if it was off the record. No disrespect to the coach. I think he may chuckle if he heard that as well. But I'm not sure. I think there's other pieces in play. I'm not really sure what else is going on, but we'll certainly keep an eye on that. By the way, Brandeis games are on hold right now. There was a shuttle bus accident involving Brandeis that killed at least one student, if I have that correct, and injured a bunch of others. So they have put games on hold in the meantime to handle all of that unfortunateness, to say the least. By the way, we should mention guests we're going to have coming up on today's show. Look, a little bit of a twist. Tonight, there's going to be a game featuring 2 Division III teams. And I say tonight, if you're listening to this on Tuesday, 2 Division III teams that are being coached by twins. Now, last year there was another story about a Division III team at Brynanthan who was coaching against his twin, but his twin wasn't an NCAA team. But the Van Zelsts join me, Adam and Ryan, to talk about a lot of things. We talked about a lot of cool things. We talked about their playing days. We talked about their coaching road. And we ultimately talked about this upcoming game and just being twins and having some fun with it. Went a little longer than I expected, but some great stuff from the guys. So that's coming up here in a moment, the Van Zelst twins. And then we talked to Tahri Phillips. She's a captain of the Washington and Lee women's basketball team and a Rhodes Scholar. She is one from, I could tell, just 2 Division III student athletes who are Rhodes Scholars this season, the other one up at MIT. She's the only basketball player. So we talked to her, and wait till you hear everything she's involved in. It's absolutely mind-blowing. So we talked to her coming up later in the program. That transitions us into our first interview of this show. Going to talk to 2 coaches at the same time. Well, because they're twins. Adam and Ryan Van Zelst have been part of basketball most of their lives. I guess being twins, they've been doing that more of their lives, but you get my point. There was a twin story last year that made some news in Division III. Bryn Mawr's head coach is a twin, but his brother, non-NCAA. So it was a unique thing, certainly, but not one that we kind of dove in on. This one is all D3, as you have Adam, the head coach of Arcadia, taking on Ryan, the head coach of Penn State Abingdon, on Tuesday night, the night we're putting this show out, ahead of Thanksgiving. We sat down and talked to the 2 about that, about being twins, about playing the game together, about coaching against one another, and so much more. It was a great conversation. They were so willing of their time, and here's what they had to say ahead of their game on Tuesday. So now joining us on the Hoopsville hotline, it's the twins. It's Ryan and Adam. And I think their names are probably visible on the screen. We'll find out in editing. But if you're trying to guess, good luck, because admittedly, except for the one little logo, they look pretty similar. Ryan and Adam, thanks for taking the time. Really appreciate it. Ryan, we'll start with you. First year head coach. You're jumping in with both feet because you're diving right into a game against your brother. I am actually genuinely curious. Did you schedule the game, or was this already scheduled?
Yeah, great question. So it was already scheduled, and I'll be honest, getting the job late. Oh,
well, now we're starting over.
Sorry. Yeah. Just hey, it's a new office for me too. I'm still adjusting here.
How about you just start from the beginning of the question, and then I'll find a way to edit in.
Okay, I appreciate it. Yeah, so if I don't move in this office, it just goes by. It's just
I hear that.
But yeah, so I did not schedule the game. I got the job in late spring, early summer. So, as a new head coach, I was a little worried about scheduling. So I saw it, and in my head, I'm like, oh no, because I knew Arcadia and Abington had played in the past. But I was worried I wouldn't find anyone that would fit in the appropriate time when we're playing, and I don't want to squeeze another back-to-back in an already tough league schedule. So decided to stick with it. We played against each other, coached against each other at different schools, being assistants, me being an assistant, him as a head coach. But we figured let's just keep it for 1 year. We'll just go with it and make the best of it.
Adam, did you actually, Brian, real quick? I'm surprised in the acceptance of the job. You didn't say, you know what? No, you got that game on the schedule. I'm not taking the job. Forget it. Adam, obviously, it's just for you. It's scheduling. You've been there a few years. It's just about scheduling. I am curious. When Ryan got the job there, were you quietly in the back of your mind going, "You do know what you got coming, right?"
I mean, I tried moving the game. I tried getting rid of the game. I actually found him one or two opponents that he could have played instead of us, and he declined. So here we are. I tried telling him, it's your job. Losing is not fun. We all hate it. We're competitive guys. We've always been competitive against each other always. So, here we are. We play tomorrow. So we'll see how this thing goes.
It's brilliant that you literally tried to find him an out to get away from playing against each other. That's great. Yeah, Ryan, you mentioned you guys coached against one another as assistants, and obviously it's very different in that case. I don't think anybody was ejected from those games where you had to take over necessarily, especially against one another. But let's back it up a little bit, because you guys obviously played with one another. You're twins, and we should point out you're identical, right?
We're actually fraternal.
Oh, you're fraternal.
Surprising to a lot, but we are fraternal.
Yeah. Well, that's even more interesting, because you guys look identical.
It's really our mannerisms and the way we talk. And if someone comes and watches the game tomorrow, they'll be like, oh my God, it's mirror images of each other and the way we move and interact with our guys and stuff like that. So even our parents right now, if I called my dad and my brother's name came up, probably wouldn't be able to tell our voice either. So that's where people get missed.
That's fascinating. Adam, how going all the way back, at what point did you guys start playing the sports together, especially hoops? And at what point did you start playing off one another?
Oh man, I think we started playing basketball together in second, third grade, and we both just fell in love with it. And if you ask anybody that's played with us, it's just, people always like, what's it like being a twin? What's it like playing with a twin? Just imagine having a best friend around all the time, someone with the exact same hobbies, same friend group, all that type of stuff. So when we played basketball together growing up, you just always know where that person may be, where they're going to score, yada yada yada. It's just more of a connection thing more than actually being a twin. So I always say we've been lucky, we've been blessed to do something that we love to do, and we can relate and talk to somebody candidly always in our field, which I think is hard to do, to find true friends, in this business, right?
Oh, that's very true, especially with the grind that it is that you've gotten to in coaching. But Adam, keeping it back in the playing days, I've seen twins go to different schools, and I've seen twins go to the same school. I don't see any pattern, as it were. What was the decision from your guys' perspective? And Ryan, we'll get yours in a minute as well, on just what you chose you to stay together as brothers playing at a school, and then choosing Albright as a result of that.
Yeah, so our recruitment was pretty interesting. We both had multiple Division III schools, but different schools. Albright was the only D3 that actually recruited both of us. And we both went on our separate visits individually, and I think we liked schools. But then once we went to Albright together, I think we laughed and we both felt very comfortable. And candidly, that's probably because we were together, and they painted a pretty good picture of what it would be like. Now, looking back, 2 5'10" point guards going to the same school is probably the dumbest decision we ever made, basketball wise. I don't know how many coaches were like, hey, we're going to start a backcourt of 5'10" and 5'10". But I think the comfortability piece and us having each other there as a support system was probably the deciding factor, along with the success that Albright had at the time, and Coach Ferry building that relationship with him and recruiting us throughout the season. But definitely not playing wise was the perfect decision. I'll say that,
Ryan, your perspective on that whole process.
Yeah, it was interesting. And like Adam said, it really came down to Coach Ferry just, taking the time to recruit both of us. And I mean, I don't want to age us here on this interview, but I remember when Coach would call our house phone, and Adam get on the phone, they'd be like, "All right, Ryan, you pick up," and then we both get on and talk to him. He really took the time to recruit both of us. And like Adam said, yeah, playing wise, probably not the best decision, but ultimately it was about comfort, and it was about just getting the opportunity to spend more time together. And we're probably way closer because of it. And I wouldn't change it for the world looking back on it. In the playing time when we were playing, yeah, was it frustrating? Absolutely. But end of the day, we have the same friends, great friend group from Albright, and great mentors, coaches in our lives because of that decision. So, yeah, was it interesting? Absolutely. But it was the right decision for us ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Rick wasn't a dummy. He's a AD and a coach. He's limited time in recruiting. He can get two guys for the effort of one. I'm gonna do the same. I mean, I'm gonna actually go question these other coaches when I find out who they were and go, "What were you thinking? Why weren't you recruiting both?" I mean, you're filling two spots here, guys. Let's wake up. Ryan, to that extent, you kind of hinted at it. The one way I would maybe be able to differentiate that you're not identical, and it's not a perfect way of saying this, is Adam got, especially by the end of his career, a lot of the playing time, starting and being a integral part of the main unit. You were coming off the bench in a very different role. If I were to say that they're not identical, it's because that would argue there was a big difference in the talent size. How hard was that for you to be at the same school and see Adam basically getting all the minutes?
Yeah, 100. And it's a great question. And honestly, it's interesting because in high school, it flipped. So I started my sophomore year all the way through to senior year.
Wow.
And then in college, it was just opposite. Adam played a lot more than me. And, it's funny how things work out and, hindsight, looking at stuff, and it all worked out the right way. And yeah, was it hard? I mean, I'm a competitor, and, you're not in coaching if you don't have an ego and you're not a competitor. And would I love to play? Absolutely. But you know what? Coach made a decision. You live with it. And I was Adam's biggest fan, and I'll be honest with you, and even watching his Arcadia teams now, it's harder for me to watch his teams play than even when I'm coaching us, because it's so emotional and you care so much. And when I was on the bench watching them, it was emotional just like it is now. So it was hard as a player, but you do what you're told, and coach made a decision. Okay, try to get better and keep doing what's asked of you.
Interesting. Adam, from your perspective, what was it like?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you want success for your brother, your twin brother, your best friend. It was hard, because obviously I was a captain, leader of the team. So on one end, I have selfish motives that, I want my brother to play, but on the flip side, I also need to do what's best for the team and lead the team in the right direction. So it was tough, and there was a lot of tough times. It hurt me just as much, him not playing, than you could say, for his perspective of watching me play, right? So the good thing was we had such a good group of guys. I touched on this earlier. Our best friends to this day are guys that we played college basketball with. So I think they all understood what we were going through, and they really eased the burden. We all lived in a house together with 6 guys. And, I think it was never like, Adam plays, Ryan doesn't. It's like, hey, we're one big family, and we're going to make the best of this situation. And we had a lot of success those 2 years that, I was playing a lot. And, I think, winning solves a lot of problems. So I think that just helped overall the whole situation, dynamics with Ryan and I. And Ryan said it, we wouldn't be where we are today if we didn't make this decision. So yeah, it was not fun. It was not fun, but winning helps. And thank goodness we were able to talk through it, and we're really close. And it made us better people, I think, going through those tough times.
You guys then both went into the coaching ranks in different directions, but came back together at Albright for at least a year. Ryan, or Adam, I'll start with you because we'll just go back and forth. Curious what prompted you to decide to go into coaching, and you ended up staying a significant amount of time under Rick Ferry as an assistant. What was that whole decision process like for you?
Yeah, so I actually had an extra year of school. I was out of eligibility, and the assistant coach at the time, who is the head coach at Elizabethtown College, Britt Moore now, that first week of classes, the fall semester, he brought me in. He goes, hey, do you want to help out and you want to coach? And honestly, basketball's always been our lives, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. And that year I fell in love with it. I decided this is definitely something I want to do my entire life. And Stayed there then for 8 years, which felt like, an eternity because I played there too. I was living in Reading, Pennsylvania for 12 years. So as anybody who knows Reading, have some ups and downs. But, was fortunate enough time to have Rye come help us out for a season. And, we shared an office. I'll tell you this, there were days that we didn't say a word for 6 straight hours. And there were days that, we were at each other's throats. So, but it was an awesome experience. And if I ever had the opportunity to coach with him again, it'd be a dream come true. But, Rick and I, our relationship is interesting. A lot of the coaches who work with guys that they played for, and then you see them in a different light and you experience their whole life and you figure out the type of person there is. Rick's been a mentor for me, and he's one of my good friends. So very fortunate and able to see that other side of him, the human side of him, I would say.
Yeah, fair. Ryan, you went off to York for a couple of seasons. What drew you back to go at least one more year with your brother at Albright?
Yeah, so first off, thanks to Matt Hunter. He gave me a shot, took a chance on me, and great coach, great person. Has done an unbelievable job with that program and where we were. So yeah, moving out to York, interesting. And anyone that you meet that lives around the Philadelphia area, Philly's everything, and that's the only place that exists in the world. So took a chance, made me a better person. So went out there with him, spent 2 years, helped recruit and build that program up, and just learned how to work and learned how to be a coach and an adult. And then after that, it got to the point where, obviously, when you start in this profession, you're not making any money. So Adam and I talk 4 or 5 times a day, which everyone that knows us will tell you. We want to spend a year together. So put something different on the resume and hang out and, get a chance to go back to the alma mater. And we had a lot of fun, but like Adam mentioned, we also had a lot of tough days too. And that was a rebuilding year for Albright. So God bless Rick and putting up with us. And like Adam said, he's done so much for our family and just been great to us and allowing us to keep Albright as a second home. And obviously we're big fans of Albright and hope they have continued success and keep doing what they do. And he's just been great for us. But yeah, took a chance and, I'm forever indebted to him.
Ryan, you then decided to, for a guy who's all about Philly, go to the antithesis of that, went north to a town that has its own ego for very different reasons. It's a completely different type of vibe. And you ended up in Scranton, where I got to see you a number of times during your assistant coaching career. What drew you to the program under Carl Danzig?
Yeah, well, to start, I'll get emotional even talking about him. Carl Danzig's like a second father to me. Unbelievable person, unbelievable coach. The opportunity just to be with him every day and learn from him. It's not even about basketball. He's a great man. And what he does day in, day out, treating people the right way, operating a program and creating young men, it was an opportunity of a lifetime. And I would never be here today and be in this opportunity and feel comfortable being a head coach if it wasn't for him. And those 7 years changed my life. I love Scranton. It's funny you say that. I'm back in Philly. Everyone keeps saying, hey, how's it feel like being home? Scranton feels like home to me. And this has been different coming back to the Philadelphia area because I loved it up there. I loved the people, from Dave Martin to Carl Danzig to the guys I coached and was able to be around. It's a special place. So it's been an adjustment to come back to home. But those 7 years they changed my life for the better.
I'm just hoping Carl now struggles with coming down to Goucher and playing now that you're gone. That's all I'm hoping. Because I'm figuring you're the key, right?
Great.
You're the key to all this, I believe. That's the argument I'm going with at this point. Adam, you got the job at Arcadia and jumped kind of both feet in with the head coaching gig. What was that decision like to take over a program at that point and know that, and to be honest, not that I'm trying to drive a wedge, but knowing that your brother's not in that situation?
Yeah, really tough, right? Like Rye's talking about Philly. Number one, he has been complaining about Philly, the traffic, the 20-minute ride to work. If I hear Rye talk about that one more time, I'm going to lose my mind.
Tough transition.
Yeah. But no, look, honestly, this was a destination job for me. Obviously very familiar with Arcadia from my time at Albright. Justin Scott did an unbelievable job, got an unbelievable opportunity to go work with St. Joe's. He left me some really good players and to really turn this into a strong program. So I got blessed with a great opportunity. Can't believe it's been 4 years. Can't believe time flies, but it's hard. I know my brother, you know how it is, Dave, the grind, a D3 assistant trying to get a head coaching job, good jobs that open up. There's 150, 200 applicants. what separates you? How do you, who do you know? How's your resume? I got really lucky. I got really fortunate. We have great staff here. Brian Granada does an unbelievable job, the athletic director here. And, I'm very fortunate and really lucky to be here. And I love this place. I love where I am. And, Ryan went through the interview gauntlet with a bunch of other D3 assistants. He had a bunch of chances at different jobs, and, what's meant to be is be. And, who would have thought we would end up 15 minutes down the road from each other? We live 5 blocks from each other now. And, I couldn't be happier with it, but you know how it is. It's hard, and you got to put your head down. You got to keep working. You can only worry about yourself. You can't look at someone else. Hey, he got this job. Why didn't I? How many assistants out there? Think about that. And you just got to stay course, and you just worry to be the best version of yourself every day. It can be tough.
We went into the weeds there a bit in the career, but I was fascinated by those, again, kind of this different paths for guys that you would maybe expect to be a little bit more similar. But again, as you point out, there's a grind there. You got to take your opportunities, and not necessarily does a coach have 2 openings available at the same time for guys. And that's what was great about Albright that 1 year. All right. So listen, I know Greg and Kevin Curley real well. I rib them constantly. They're not twins, but I rib them constantly about the fact that they never play each other. And their argument back is, well, we want to at least, still be brothers and love each other. So we'll just have a scrimmage. And again, I've always argued that if either of them get into the tournament, or both of them get into the NCAA tournament at the same time, I am absolutely using every bit of my leverage I can with the committee and saying, first round, please. You have to have them in the first round against each other. I will not argue about regional problems. Please have them. You guys are going at each other for a game at least. What's this going to be like? This is pre-Thanksgiving. Are you even going to be talking on Thanksgiving after this game, Adam?
Yeah, well, a couple things. So this is a one and done thing. We will not schedule this game. We're already replaced it. So we're done after this. All right. And then number 2, we have, like we talked about our friend group, we have a thing we call Thanksgiving Eve where we all go out every Tuesday before Thanksgiving. All right.
Let me guess. It's all coming to the game.
It's all coming to the game.
Nice.
And you got to go. So we have 15 people come in, and we all go out. We stay out all night and, tell stories about the past. So it's going to be a little awkward this year, right? It's our job. One person's got to lose. So, we're going to try and make the most of it. Our friends are going to enjoy it. I'll tell you that. But, you can't stay home. You got to go out with the guys. So, we got to worry about that before Thanksgiving. So we'll see how that goes.
Ryan, any stipulation that if this game is tied after regulation, forget it, it's staying tied?
Well, after our double OT game earlier this year, I got so tired. I'll just look at them like, we'll take the tie. We're good. Keep everybody happy. Keep the families happy, maybe do a couple pitchers after, nobody loses. We're okay.
Right.
So we'll see.
Okay, listen, I got to give you a little bit of a hard time. One and done? I mean, why not at least see what the... Now, I realize my premise here is going to eliminate the chance for next year anyway. But why not experience that one shot and then see, hey, maybe we can keep doing this?
Well, it's like you talked about with the Curleys and both great coaches. It's just so emotional. It's... I'm watching Adam's film before we got on this, and I'm just like, I've been watching Adam's team for 3-4 years now, and it's, what the guys are. I know his guys personally. I have a relationship with them, and you care about them. And like I was saying, I root for them really hard, and it's just awkward. It's emotional. Even if someone wins, the other one's unhappy, and it's not fun. Let's just leave it like that.
Okay, so I had a husband and wife last year who coached against one another. We had them on the show. By all accounts, they're still together. So I'm not buying this. I think you'd be okay. I think you would survive. But that's just me personally. I'm a glutton to watch the fun stuff. I want to see it. Ryan, I'm curious. Well, this is kind of my backdoor into having a little more fun with you. Any thoughts with you and Adam of swapping teams, whether it's at the beginning or at halftime, just to see if your teams realize that's not my coach?
Well, I know for a fact they wouldn't know. There's no way they would know if he came in the locker room dressed in the same way. I just know it for guaranteed. Don't know if they'd appreciate it though. These are my guys and they're working hard, and I got their back as much as they got mine. So, but I know for a fact they would not be able to tell. I guarantee it.
Adam, it would be kind of funny, though, if you came in the door and you started telling him polar opposite of what everything had been said up to that point. No, man, they never go into zone. That's not at all what they do. We're going to definitely be saying, man, this is how we're going to attack it. I mean, sounds like it'd be a little fun.
Well, Dave, the thing I'm worried about, and actually I'm going to tell my team today, is so we both have very similar voices. So like when one of us yelled during the game, I feel like all 10 guys on the floor are going to look at that bench. So we're going to have to do some hand signal stuff. It's going to be because like we both have booming voices. We're really loud. We're very animated. We're young head coaches.
Yeah.
Rye more so is a maniac on the sideline. So like right now, so our guys are going to be looking over. Everyone's going to be so confused the whole time.
Maybe you need to time it early in the game. Both of you say the exact same thing at the exact same time and just see if even the officials are like, wait, what?
I mean,
like
Dave,
they're going to be
have their
confused.
calls. We have their calls. So when Adam calls something and I have court, I'm just going to call something else and see if the guys listen.
I want to see you use I don't ever encourage this from coaches because it blocks me at the table, but I want to see you both use the full extent of the coaches' boxes, get as close as possible to each other and start barking out commands and have everybody just absolutely confused because they don't remember which way they're going at any point. I mean, it would be fun. I'm looking for the fun here. I don't care about the outcome. I'm looking for the fun. Speaking of that, though, you guys had to have a history of swapping or doing something to kind of, you said you lived with a bunch of your teammates. There had to have been moments, Adam, where you guys were flipping roles or doing something to screw with people.
All right, I'll give you one example here. We were in high school. I had a religion. We both had the same religion professor at Comwing Catholic. Miss Cardigan was her name. She would always say, hey, if you guys flip classes, I'll be able to tell. So we waited till like 3/4 into the year. We actually did it. And then I sat there for 20 minutes. She had no idea. And then I stood up. I was like, hey, gotcha. The whole class is laughing. And she's like, oh, my God, can't believe you got us. It was like, that was it. And we were like, all right, cool. And then went back to our class. But
the worst part about all of it is I had to switch to an algebra class. And that would have been the second time I had to take math that day. I don't want to sit in that class. So, there really wasn't much pros to it in that sense. But we did get her.
Algebra. I mean, you're literally in coaching, which is all about math. God, Ryan. That's pretty good. I like that one. I'm just saying maybe halftime even swap roles and just really everybody walks out to warm up. You two just switch benches and see how it goes.
Well, Dave, if he wants to drive the van because we're for the travel and I'll drive separate, I'd be okay with that too. If he wants to travel our team over, that'd be perfect.
No, we've done enough van traveling so far for the year. We're okay.
Okay. You're not too far away. That could work. Guys, I can only imagine. Well, I mean, for your wives and family, it's got to be, and I assumed wives, by the way. I don't know, girlfriends or some significant other. I'm not going to make any assumptions as to what your social life is, but that's got to be challenging for them at times, I'm assuming. How's this year going?
Well, I'll be honest. So my girlfriend's an assistant at Lehigh, so she's very good with all this. She's a coach. She gets it. This is pretty easy to understand. That is stressful for me as well. So she's been great.
Adam, how's your support system?
Yeah. So, my girlfriend has known Ryan now for 3 years. She understands the coach life. She understands she sees how emotional I'm upset or how happy I am for Ryan's success or when he's struggling, all that type of stuff. So, she's there. I don't think it's hard because I don't think our significant others can relate, but I don't think they can fully grasp the emotional connection, I guess. I don't know. That's kind of the word I'm looking for because, when you're in it, you want to win, right? You want success, all that type of stuff. So they're there and they do the best they can. I don't think necessarily they always understand, how serious it is, I guess.
Another argument for swapping roles. If you're so invested in how your brother and his team is doing, now you have the ability to help your brother's team. You're swapping roles and this is a win-win, right? Come on. I like it. Just a thought.
Yeah, no, when we travel to Lycombe and we have a tough road conference game, I could take that one. Like, absolutely. He'll take that one. I'll take any of Rise non-conference games. We can swap those. I'm all in for that.
Yeah, Adam, if you want to take Marshall State and Wells this year, you can have those trips and we'll be okay with that.
Yeah, Adam, he did pick the long distance ones. You picked a shorter one to Lyco. I think Ryan's playing hardball there. If anyone's wondering, watching at home, by the way, yes, Ryan's image has changed. He had some internet issues, and thanks to the power of editing, we just spliced him in. Again, back to the reference. Just edit, you splice, just switch roles. That's all I'm saying. By the way, Adam, you only have one more trip to LICO. Okay. I don't want to hear any more complaints. This is the last one, unless you schedule and you're out of conference. Okay. Just
correct. This is correct.
All right. Listen, don't want to take more of your time. You've taken plenty of ours or not plenty of ours. We've taken plenty of yours and we really appreciated it. We could dive into your teams. You're both off to decent starts, 2-2 and 2-1. Unfortunately, I realize Tuesday's game will have an impact on that and maybe Thanksgiving niceties, but I digress. I've had so much fun chatting with you guys and I appreciate it. We'll just basically leave it at that and find out from you guys just your final thoughts on this game playing against one another. We'll get your overall final thoughts later, but final thoughts on this game, what it means to you guys and how this will kind of play out for your lives. Ryan, we'll start with you on that one.
Yeah, it's kind of come full circle, being away, like we talked about earlier, being away from the Philadelphia region, getting back and, it just kind of comes around and now I get to see my brother who's right down the road. And, at the end of the day, it's great for our guys. The publicity is great for this program and great for the young men in this program because we're trying to build something here. And we have some talented guys and we're trying to take that next step. And yeah, if it uses this twin narrative as a platform, that's okay with me because at the end of the day, it's about the young men in our program. And I love where I'm at. I love being here and, being a twin maybe puts us on the map right now. And that's okay. We got to start somewhere. So really excited. And yeah, it sucks to be competing against my brother, but I love him and I love their program and I love the guys in their program too. So we'll get through it. We'll enjoy Thanksgiving and hopefully this time next year, we'll all be laughing about it. So that's kind of where we're at.
Well, you won't be playing each other, unfortunately. So you better be.
No, we won't. No, we won't.
Adam, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I just remember when we were, 22, 23, breaking into this business, talking about being head coaches and how awesome that would be and fulfilling our dreams. And here we are, and we're actually competing against each other. So, yeah, it's not going to be fun, but selfishly, I'm happy for him, and I can't wait to watch his program. And it's been great to watch them succeed and get off to this hot start. And I know he's not happy with 2-2, but they're playing good basketball. They have a really good program over there. And honestly, we just haven't beat Penn State Abington since I've been here, so we really want to beat them on that sense too.
That's the problem. I got the jinx, so now we have to win.
Yeah, there's no good way out of this one. It's going to get spun in a weird way, but quietly in the back of his head, he's thinking, "I do want to win. I want to."
Yeah. No, we do. We're off to a good start. I love our group. We have a great group of young men. It's about them, and Ryan and I will tell you, it's never been about us. We're not me guys. That's not who we are at all. It's always about our student athletes, and they're always at the forefront of everything we do and every decision we make. So. It's a little weird, talking about ourselves a little bit, but Ryan said it, if we can get, some publicity and, put our name out there in a positive light, in a positive manner, I think it's good for the game of basketball. It's good for D3 hoops. So hopefully it'll be an entertaining game and, hopefully the Knights win.
Hey, arguably, it was about you guys for the last whatever amount of minutes, and I appreciate that, but I do appreciate that it's about the teams as well. By the way, any friendly wager, and I'm using that term a little bit loosely on this one, maybe something like at Thanksgiving dinner, the winner gets introduced or comes in second into the house and is introduced in a grand way, and the loser's got to open the door and take his jacket or something wonky like that. I mean, come on, there's got to be something on this.
I mean, I'm sure something will come up later that night when we're all together in a different setting. So we'll see. I'm sure something will be thought of, though. There's no doubt.
There might be a trophy that'd be made.
There we go.
One-time winner. I don't know. I can't speak in the details yet. It's just, we might find out Tuesday night. I don't know.
I like it. My only problem with it is you got to keep playing so that trophy can go back and forth.
Yeah. So if we win, then we'll just never schedule again. We'll just hold the trophy in the office.
I don't like this mentality, gentlemen. I do not like this mentality. You get the wrong message. The point is to keep playing against one another for our fun. Forget you two.
Dave, if you come call the game live and be here and be a presence, maybe we can talk about it.
Hey, listen. I can't. I got to be somewhere else in Pennsylvania on Tuesday, but I'll say this: you reschedule that game. Let's talk. Okay. Let's talk.
That's fair.
All right.
All right. If you reschedule the game, call me and we'll figure something out. I like that idea. but that
Okay.
somehow looped me into this whole thing, and I don't know how that happened.
Well, I got sad. I'm not going to see you down a Goucher this year, so I figured you got to make it work. So
Okay. Oh, so I've got to go through the hoops because you left the job. I don't understand how this happened.
Self-serving. There we go.
Wow, this escalated quickly. Guys, thanks so much. It was awesome. We always do give the guests the final word. And Adam, since you got the head coaching gigs first, we'll start with you. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuned in?
Yeah, thanks for listening. Dave does a great job for D3 hoops and D3 basketball in general. So, keep supporting. We have a really quality product. It's really hard to play college basketball, and at this level, you got to be really good. So, thank you for everything you do, and hope everyone stays healthy and has a great season that listens.
Thanks, Adam. Very kind of you. Ryan, your final thoughts.
yeah, I just want to back that up. And D3 hoops is really good, and the work you guys do doesn't go unnoticed amongst coaches and certainly the student athletes, because it gives them a platform and a place to be seen and heard. And it's good. There's really good basketball, really good players in every program across this country. And what you guys do is special. And I remember looking at the website as a player and being tuned in. So being a part of it and being a coach and understanding the platform you guys provide is really special. Though, to be on with you and talk about me and my brother in Penn State, Abington, and Arcadia is really unique and awesome. So thank you for your work.
Well, and thanks to your PR staffs as well for kind of alerting us to this and giving us a chance to get you guys on. By the way, you didn't want to date yourselves earlier, but you just dated us. Thanks, Ryan. I'm well aware that coaches were players or in high school when we started this. They may not have even been born.
That's correct, though.
But yeah, that stings a little. Anyway, guys, great chatting with you. Good luck on Tuesday night. I'll tune in from where I am for sure and keep seeing and maybe watch it back later. But I look forward to seeing it. Have a great Thanksgiving in the meantime, and we'll look forward to talking to you both about a little bit more about your programs at a later date.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks again so much to Adam and Ryan for joining us on the program and talking about everything and indulging me to some degree as well. Longer interview than we anticipated, but they were so great in chatting, even getting through some technical glitches there to get on the show. We can go round and round about whether we should have this game continue. I actually get both sides. I totally understand, even from the Curleys, who I playfully rib a little bit about playing against one another and coaching against one another. I get the emotions that are involved with that, and I can certainly respect the fact that they'd rather not have that opportunity present itself, as it were, or at least willingly when you're scheduling games in season. But the fan in me and the one who wants to see something fun and unique wants to see that. We want to see those funny little stories or those great little matchups or something unique about the game that just makes it a lot more exciting than it already is. But it is about the teams, as the coaches pointed out, and we wish both teams well in their game on Tuesday, aside from their coaches, who I don't think are going to switch huddles. I think that's just a figment of my imagination, and I'll have to enjoy it from my computer. When we come back, we're going to talk Rhodes Scholar. Believe it or not, we're going to go deep into the educational side of Division III and have a bit of a YD3 moment when we talk to a women's basketball player in Division III who's been selected to be a Rhodes Scholar next year. It's not something that has never happened before, but it's certainly an interview we've never had on this show. We get to learn all about the Washington and Lee's Rhodes Scholar in women's basketball when we come back on Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the NABC studios.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.D3Hoops.com.
Passion's love. Passion is love for what you do. Because I think when you face challenges, it comes down to how much you want it and how much you love it. Passion is what keeps you going forward. Seeing so many people that were like-minded and so hardworking in their sport and academics, being surrounded by like-minded people makes you want to be more passionate. I think it pushes you to a different level that maybe you didn't think you had. And you can do the best of both worlds and love all of it.
Welcome back to Hoopsville. Trying something a little bit different today, going with a few less ads since they aren't paid for right now. But if you want to jump on board and support this show and be a sponsor or an advertiser, we will run your ads as often as we agree to. And so we can add some more breaks into the program, at least in these recorded shows. And the live shows will go back to our normal formatting because that's how we use the time to get guests online and such. Now time to switch to women's basketball and talk about a unique woman named Tahri Phillips at Washington and Lee. Believe it or not, she's not only a good enough to play basketball, let's just be honest, in Division III on a pretty good Washington and Lee team, but she's also pretty darn smart. Yeah, we know that in Division III, right? We've heard that in a number of places. Well, she's a Rhodes Scholar, and that is not something that comes easily. There's only 2 Rhodes Scholars this year in Division III altogether, the other being an MIT track and field student athlete. Well, that's not all she does. When I started looking at her bio, I was blown away at how involved she is on campus, what else she's doing, and how highly regarded she is by those who know her best on campus, and even maybe those who just know her by acquaintance. I was very impressed, and we'll link to an article from WNL about her on the show page. But Tahri Phillips blew me away. Now joining us on the Hoopsville hotline, it is Tahri Phillips, or I should say Tarrington Phillips, as I was given the information earlier. Thanks for taking the time, Tahri. Really appreciate it. Welcome in. A little bit of a break for you, so I appreciate you finding some time for us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Listen, I'm not going to be able to do this justice, but we'll get to it eventually. But first and foremost, you got the honor just recently of being named a Rhodes Scholar. I think for a lot of people, that term has been thrown around a lot. You hear it from politicians, you hear it from some others who get it. Can you give us a sense from your perspective what it means to be a Rhodes Scholar?
Yeah, it's a pretty prestigious academic award, but I think when you talk to a lot of people that have been Rhodes Scholars in the past, it's a lot more than just an academic award. It also recognizes leadership and, what do you do for your community, and are you going to be a change maker, essentially? And so there are only 32 that are given to students every year, which makes it pretty hard to get. But yeah, I think it just recognizes academic achievement, but also just who are you in your community.
Yeah, I was looking through the list of this year's honorees. I saw a lot of Yales. I saw a lot of Harvards. I mean, no surprise, right? Saw a handful of MITs, including a track and field student athlete. I thought I read, WNL's had a few, not a lot. You join a small group there. What does that mean then? I mean, we'll get to the whole process in a second, but what does it mean to stand out as one of the 32 best, quote unquote, leaders in academia and those in academia that deserve to go to England to enhance your education, and by the way, not have to pay for it?
Yeah, I think people assume that, when they're thinking about like the brightest and best, I guess, across the country, immediately people's brains jump to Ivy League schools and schools like MIT and Stanford. So to me, it's really just symbolizes like you don't need to go to a school like that to be a high achieving student and a high achieving or a high contributing member of your community. You don't need to have that big name behind you or anything like that. You can go to a different, smaller school, somewhere you feel really comfortable and achieve the same levels of success.
Was it something that was on your radar? Was it something that you had always strived to do, or was it something that came along and you went, and I don't mean this as a lesser, but why the hell not? Let's do that.
Somewhere in the middle, actually.
Okay.
Because when I was a sophomore in college, our director of fellowships here said, you're going to apply for this one day. And I was like, okay, sure. I really, if you tell me I'll be good for it, I'll smile and nod. And then as the years went on, he just kept saying, you're going to apply for this. You're going to apply for this. Why not apply for this? And I'd already applied for some other things. So it just made sense to do this application too.
Copy paste. Sure. Why not? Yeah, I can do that. Fine. Give us a little bit of a sense. So you're going to be graduating and taking advantage of the Rhodes Scholar next year, but I know it's not just a 1-year thing. Can you give everybody a sense now of what that next step is, having been honored with this, how you will use it, I guess is the best way to ask that.
Yeah. So the Rhodes Scholarship funds between 2 to 4 years of at Oxford, and the Rhodes Trust doesn't really want anyone to do less than 2 years. So now I'm in the process of actually applying to the graduate program at Oxford that I want to do, which I know seems a little bit counterintuitive to most people. But it's almost like it's sort of like you apply for the funding on the front end and then apply to the specific program that you're interested in. So guaranteed to be at Oxford, but not necessarily guaranteed to have the program that I want.
Fascinating.
Yeah. And so I'm currently working on applying to the MPhil in evidence-based social intervention and policy evaluation, which is a mouthful. But that would be a 2-year program at Oxford.
But yeah, could you break that down a little bit for us lay folk? I did not follow.
Yeah, so it's basically a program that has 2 tracks. So one track is like social intervention route, and then the other route is more of the policy evaluation route. And then you ultimately sort of pick which one suits your fancy. And so I'm personally thinking more about the social intervention route than I am about the policy evaluation route.
Fascinating. I'm actually almost a little surprised that you get the Rhodes Scholars. You said you then have to apply to whatever you're going to concentrate in, that isn't kind of maybe not one before the other as this is, but they're almost together. You apply and at the same time apply to the Rhodes Scholar, and then you would get them both at the same time. It's interesting. You now have a whole nother step ahead of you.
Yeah, it's the nice thing though is that you get a lot more help now in that step of actually applying than I would have gotten if I was just, any other student applying to Oxford. I actually have connections now who can help me navigate this application process and figure out, make sure that this is 100% what I want to do, and then help me craft those applications.
Well, and then the Rhodes Scholars are like, no, we want her at the school, so we need to make sure we figure this out. So I get it. Let me circle back to WNL. I started to write down the list of things you're involved in, knowing it would be long, and then realized I may not have gotten everything. And realized the list was getting longer. My handwriting was getting worse. So I want to try and go through this. First off, we'll start off. You do have a musical background. We'll come to that later. I ran into that in your pre-WNL notes. You're involved in residential life. You're an ambassador to the school. You're in a sorority and a part of the leadership there. You're in the student, or have been. Some of these you may not still be doing, but things I picked up. Student Association for Black Unity, Queer Liberation Alliance, Penny Minority Athlete Coalition, Office of Inclusion and Engagement. Here's where the handwriting started going sideways. Student Association for Black Unity, Woods Creek and Theme Houses, Jubilee, which is a female a cappella group. I told you to get back to the music side. Student Affairs Committee. Oh, by the way, you're also a captain of the women's basketball team, which is why you're on the show in the first place.
Yeah.
Tahri, we're going to start with a couple questions. First, do you sleep?
Yes, that's actually one of the, I have to say, most common questions I get asked.
Yeah.
People start asking me about the stuff that I do. I get 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night. And I know it seems crazy to people. I really, really value my sleep.
I do 1% of that. And I get 5 hours.
No, I build it into my schedule to make sure that I am going to sleep when I want to be.
I'm impressed.
Yeah, I don't know. I get my sleep, lots of time management.
Is there any time in the dorm room or the sorority room, whichever it is, where you're not sleeping? In other words, are you ever in your room when you're not there to sleep?
How much am I in my room when I'm not there to sleep?
Yeah.
Well, mostly when I'm doing work, I would say that's pretty much about the only time.
So you do know what the room looks like with the lights on?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Okay. That's good. I'm just curious. I mean, that is, listen, I love the Gallardi Trophy in football because it strives to, what are you like as an athlete? What are you like as a academic person? I keep trying to use words I can't use. I clearly wasn't academic. And then what are you doing outside of all that? And there's the version in women's basketball as well in that world, with the Salem group, where you get to honor the Jostens Trophy for the same ideas. I've seen a lot of resumes. This resume of yours blows me away because not only are you so smart, obviously to get a Rhodes Scholar, you're so involved to be a captain of the basketball team, but Tahri, you're so involved in what that campus is. How important was that to you?
When I came into WNL, I knew that this was going to be a school I wanted to be involved in. And I knew that I was going to throw myself in to all sorts of opportunities as they presented themselves. And I think one of the cool things, partially credit to the size of the school in general, is that I think it makes it pretty easy to get involved and find, different groups to be a part of, to get involved with. But I think it's really important. One thing I value a lot is like leaving a legacy and like leaving a place better than I found it. And for me, I think I've had the chance to leave WNL better than I found it in a lot of ways. And that's come through the variety of different groups and teams that I've been a part of.
Yeah, because not only are you involved in these groups, you're involved with the leadership of those groups. That seems pretty important to you.
Yeah, I don't think it's enough in a lot of spaces to just, be a member in them. I think like showing up and at, club meetings and stuff like that is great. But I think it means a lot more when you can actually like have an impact on, what is the culture within the organization? What, steps are we taking? What do we look like to the rest of campus? And I think oftentimes that doesn't always come from being necessarily a leader with a title, but I think a lot of times it's one of the easiest ways to sort of do that work.
Listen, you can answer this how you want, but WNL obviously has a rich history that has been controversial and one that's been up for debate with a connection to not only George Washington, but to Robert Lee. And it's been a fascinating one from an outsider's perspective, just to follow and read. I know it's a complex situation. I could never have an opinion on it. I find it fascinating that you loved WNL and got involved. Did you want to help make change on the campus, or did you just want to make the campus better in other ways, if that makes any sense?
Both.
Okay.
I was a part of a lot of the protest movements throughout my first few years on campus that were all about changing the name, but even beyond changing the name, changing the culture of the school, and really placing, student diversity and student experience at the forefront of conversations that we are having. And so I think, yes, it's been about changing school broadly, but a lot of those things related to, how are we seeing our history and who are we in this new chapter of history, I've really wanted to be a part of.
And not to dive into that, that doesn't need to be the topic of our conversation, but I'm curious, do you feel things have changed? Has that movement been effective?
I think it has been effective. I would never say that our work is done, because
Sure.
I don't think work related to this ever does end. But I do think that campus now is a better place than campus was when I walked in. I think it is a far more inclusive space. I think far more steps have been taken, from an administrative level to even all the way down to the student level, to make sure that this is a better experience for everyone in our community, not just students.
Fascinating. I had to ask because it's been such an interesting topic on that campus, and I appreciate your perspective on that. Hey, let's pivot because, oh, by the way, again, it's a basketball show, and you do play basketball for the women's team, and you're a captain because, again, back to leadership. I think maybe we describe as a role player, someone who tries to make the team better. Back to that overall arcing thought you have of trying to improve things. Give us a little bit of the experience of being on the Generals basketball team, which in the last few years has been a bit of a force of late, to say the least.
Yeah, I'll say that I think the team that I'm on now is so different than the team that I walked into. And I think one of the biggest changes that I have really felt on our team has been a shift in our team culture and really thinking about our identity beyond just being basketball players. I think this is a really hot take, but I think that the summer of 2020 came just at the right time, because it really opened up a lot of dialogues within our team about, how what we're doing and who we are is so much bigger than basketball. Basketball may have been, the thing that brought us all together, but 20 years from now, it's not going to be basketball that's keeping us together. So I think we've started to have so many conversations about our own individual identities and how they all fit together. And I think all of that work has made us a better, more inclusive team and improved just the experience for everybody. And I think that's shown and reflected in the way that we've played over the past few years. I think our team performance has gotten better, and it's not a coincidence that it's come at the time that all of these team culture conversations have happened.
Fascinating. That's a great insight. Thank you. How much also does the influence of other teams on the campus success resonate? Men's soccer, obviously, getting to the championship weekend last season and certainly in the mix this year. Men's basketball has been improving. Lacrosse has always been a team to reckon with and keep an eye on. How much is the overall culture also kind of help push yourself as a team?
I mean, it's pretty hard to see other teams be successful and not want that for yourself too. And I think we show up too for these other teams. And so in the sense that we show up for them, we also hope that, they show up for us too. And that builds, I think, just like a great community of student athletes here. And then also, when my whole team watched on TV, watched the men's team at the Final Four last year, the men's soccer team that is, at the Final Four, that was a great bonding moment for our team, but also we got to watch another team be really successful and say, like, WNL, we can do that. Like, we can get to these places. And I mean, we didn't quite make it to the Final Four, but we still did make it to the NCAA tournament for only the second time in our program's history.
Well, yeah, and that's a great pivot. And by the way, I assume you listened on mute. You didn't need to listen to me call that match. But I'm curious how much last year is making an impact on this season. We hear people say it does in the past. We hear people say, of course, we got a taste of the tournament. Now we want to be in it. We hear that a lot. But honestly, how much is last year making an impact right now?
I would say last year is making a sort of marginal impact on our team. I think, the upperclassmen on the team, right? Like, we got to experience what it was like to go to New York City and play in the NCAA tournament. So we definitely want that. And we know that it's a goal for us, but I think we're also very realistic and understanding that there's a lot of days that lead up to that. Like, there's a lot of games, a lot of practices before you get to a point like that. And we're a pretty young team now. We brought in a class of 7 first years. So I think we're really right now trying to focus more on being where our feet are, being very present and enjoying the journey to get there, rather than focusing so much on, what's going to come at the end of February and March.
Sure. Yeah, it's very smart. Not looking too far ahead. The old saying, one day at a time, to some degree. Tahri, give us a sense of the team. Give us a sense of who's who. You don't have to go through every single player, but give us a sense of what makes this team click and what makes it succeed and your role in it.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I think one of the coolest things about our team is that you can put anybody on the floor and trust that they're going to be successful. And I literally said in one of our games this past week, I was sitting on the bench and I just said, I trust this team so much. Like, my coach could honestly sub anyone onto the floor and I would be like, we're good. Something good is going to come out of this. And I think that we have a lot of depth in all of our positions. We don't have any one position where I'm like, ooh, we only got 1 or 2 options there. We have a lot of people that can play in a lot of different spots, which I think adds to our success and makes us a pretty challenging opponent.
How do you see the season working from here? You obviously have a tough ODAC schedule ahead of you, which is a little bit bigger now with Averett in the mix. There's a lot of conference games. How do you see the season progressing, and how do you guys keep sane to some degree when you have that much conference to play?
Yeah, I think very much just taking it one day at a time. I think if you think about the full picture all at once, I think it's real easy to get lost in it. But I think really just trying to respect every opponent and take every opponent one at a time. So like, up and coming, we are playing Mary Washington. So that right now is our focus. We're not trying to think about, who we're playing a month from now, just taking it very much one game at a time and learning all that we can from each moment we have.
By the way, a quirk, we mentioned this on the last show with WNL. You guys started the season with conference games, 3 of them, in fact. That's not normal. Normally, everybody starts with their non-conference, kind of gets their rust shaken out, get the little practice for 4 weeks done, and move into the non-conference schedule, and then use that to get ready for conference play. You start with Ferrum, Eastern Mennonite, and Guilford, and now you're starting non-conference play. That's got to be a little bit of a mind kind of screw up in the head that the important game was first.
Yeah, I mean, that's not super unusual for us to start with important things first. And in some ways, I kind of like it. Like, why wait? Why wait to do what you could do now? And
fair.
Like, why push off, that learning opportunity if it could still be against a conference opponent? And I think it's a way for us to feel, I think, honestly, more confident in ourselves, because I think starting with conference play and, being able to see where you at in relationship to the rest of the conference, I think means more in some ways than starting with teams that you can't really 100% compare to the people that are within your own conference.
Really cool. Your playing career, what's it been like playing college basketball?
My college basketball experience has been crazy. I mean, partially COVID getting thrown in there kind of made it crazy, but my first year was very, very truncated because at the very end of my senior season, I had torn my ACL. And so I essentially missed my whole first season here. Then my sophomore season was our 8-game COVID season. For the first half of the year, we were playing in latex gloves and masks from WNL's protocols. And then last year was our first quote unquote normal season, but nothing quite feels normal after 2 years of anything but normal. And so now coming into this year, this is like the most real season I've felt and gotten to experience. So I know I'm personally just enjoying every second that I have left and every second that, this has been building up to.
If I've done the math, you could always say to the Rhodes Scholars and everybody else, listen, I've got another year of eligibility still. I would like to use it. If you don't mind, can we push this for a year? I'm just saying it's an option, right? I assume you could do that. Get another year?
No.
I had a feeling.
Not quite.
I had a feeling like most good Division III student athletes, they have other bigger goals in mind. And at some point, you got to go to those.
Yeah, maybe if I was going to grad school in the US, I would consider it. But
there you go.
Leaving the country feels like a little less of an option.
Fair. Yeah, it's a little bit of a bigger thing, as it were. Hey, I really appreciate the chat. Fascinating to learn more about you. And to be honest, I feel like we've only hit the tip of the iceberg. I am sure there is so much to talk about in just the items that you're involved with. Obviously, very much involved in the minority issues on campus and changing the campus, but also involved in the overall life of the campus. That's what I think is the most fascinating part. And oh, by the way, as we mentioned, you're a basketball player as well, so you're involved with the athletic side, and you're smart enough to go off and get this Rhodes Scholarship, which is really darn impressive. And so, congratulations! We really appreciate you finding the time to join us. We have a tradition on our show; we always give the guests the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuned in?
No, I guess my only thought is thank you for having me. I really appreciate this. And I hope everybody realizes that you don't have to go to a big school or big name brand school to make an impact and be really successful.
Oh, very well said, Tahri. Very well said. Thanks for the time. Have a great Thanksgiving. We'll look forward to seeing how you and the team do the rest of the season.
Thanks so much.
She is Tahri Phillips joining us here on the Hoopsville Hotline. Incredible conversation with Tahri Phillips, and I really want to thank her for coming on the show. Great to chat with her, learn more about her and how she clicks. She still gets 7 to 8 hours of sleep after being busy all day long, carves it into her schedule. It's just impressive to say the least. And we mentioned the Jostens Award in that conversation. This is a friendly reminder to everybody out there. There is the Jostens Award. It is given to a male and female student athlete in Division III basketball who is not only very good at basketball, but all around good in their community and pretty good on the academic side. You would think a Rhodes Scholar might have an edge on that, but to be honest and fair to Tahri, there is a basketball side of that. There's a playing side of that. And so sometimes people confuse it as an award saying that this is the best player in Division III. Yes, it goes to a player who's pretty good in Division III, but is also very good academically and is also very good in their community in whatever way that is. So this is a reminder out there to anybody who's listening. Look at your student athletes. Figure out on the men's and women's side if there's a student athlete who might fit that bill, and make sure when it comes time to nominate for the Jostens Award, you do so. I love reading all the bios that we get. I am on the voting panel. We get 10 on either side that are the finalists, and then we decide from there who we think it is. And to be honest, when I've had conversations with other voters, and I've only had a few, I only know a couple of them. Our decisions are always different because it depends on how we kind of weight things. I very much weight the academic and community involvement side along with basketball. I don't lean hard on the basketball unless I need a tiebreaker. If I've got two student athletes who I think are incredible in the classroom and incredible in their communities, and that is pretty much even, then I'll lean on the basketball side to make that decision. That's kind of how I use it. But every case is different. Every person is different. And it's not an easy thing to vote on, I'll admit. Every time I think, all right, got a couple hours, I can carve away and do this, it ends up being a much bigger project. But anyway, thank you to Tahri Phillips for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. And thank you to Sydney, by the way, at WNL for helping arrange Tahri somewhat last minute and get us information on her and book that segment. Really appreciate her time. And by the way, thanks to the sports information directors also at Penn State, Abingdon, and Arcadia, Greg and Adam respectively, for helping arrange the twins on our show today and get a chance to chat with them as well. With that note, a couple quick notes before we wrap things up here on the show. We'll go back to the questions that we got from Chip on our Twitter account. One of the questions, I'm just going to go through the 5 he has. We're not going to dive into all of them. The first one was transfers up and down, having early season impacts. We talked a little bit about that, Chip, last week or last show. It's a constant conversation, but honestly, kind of like the top 25, I want to wait a little bit longer. I want to see how those transfers truly have an impact. I think some have a perceived impact that doesn't really exist. I think there's a lot who think automatically that a D1 coming down to D3 is going to have a major impact, and there's a lot of times that those transfers disappear. We never end up talking about them ever again. And yes, certainly Division III student athletes moving up to other divisions, that's a little harder for us to follow because we're so focused on D3 only, but we'll dive into that. But I think that's something to certainly look at maybe in early January and really start to test the waters on those impacts, because then there's a number of games under everybody's belt and we start to see conference impacts as well. He also said scheduled for D1, D2, and D3 women's finals in Dallas. Very exciting event. Yep, we talked a little bit about that in the previous shows as well. This is the year that Division III will go to the Division I women's Final Four. Looks like a great event. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make it this year or not. That's for decisions down the road, if there's the ability or not. The advantage to the women is they all play in one facility. Remember that from Indianapolis. D1, D2, and D3 all in the same arena, versus when you go to the men are always at a major arena for D1, then they take the D2 and D3 game to another location. Remember in 2013 in Atlanta, and what it was supposed to be again in 2020 was... in 2020, it was the Mercedes arena, but in 2013, it was whatever the Georgia Dome right there in downtown Atlanta. That's where the site for the D1 games were, and then D2 and D3 played at the NBA arena. In the women's side, they don't need to do that. Again, it's one site, and I think that makes it better, to be honest. 2013 was a wonderful experience. Unfortunately, we missed out the 2020 experience. I'm a little, who knows when that comes back on the men's side. They have announced the new Final Four sites starting in, brief delay here, starting in 2027. It will be in Detroit. 2028 will be in Vegas. 2029, it'll be back in Indianapolis for the 90th celebration, and then in North Texas for 2030. I could see us going to Indianapolis with Division III and Division II joining Division I for the 90th, because remember, this all started with the 75th in 2013. I know it's become part of a ritual, and I'll have to double check there isn't a date I'm forgetting somewhere, because I feel like there maybe was another one there. I don't think it goes to Vegas. I know I was talking to Ryan quickly about that, because Vegas being the year before the 90th, I don't think it makes any sense. But Vegas and Indy are about the two most likely, because of you want that secondary arena like we had in Atlanta near the D1 arena, the D1 stadium. Again, not a problem you have in women's, but for example, women are going to Dallas this year because they're all in one arena. But when the men were in Dallas, that never was going to happen because they're playing out at Cowboy Stadium in Arlington, and then you're going to have the D2 and D3 game in downtown Dallas. They're nowhere near each other. Not convenient for everybody. So that's where it doesn't work out. So you've got to look at that landscape on the men's side, and that's why I think it's going to go to Indy for 90th. But we'll see. Cross that bridge when we get to it, but Dallas should be a good time. We skipped number 3, which is about upcoming tournaments. We mentioned that in the first block. He also asks if this finally Coach Broderick's year to cut down the nets. I don't know. I think it's way too early to determine early in the season with Christopher Newport women. They're rolling through teams like they did last year. I thought they were very good. They ran into a Trinity, Texas team last season that, simply put, seemed up to the task of handling the 90-foot insanity defense of the captains. They broke that defense down better than I've seen anybody do it. And it wasn't a second night game. It was a first night game on the weekend. So Trinity, A, had time to get ready for it, but B, there was no fatigue to worry about. I do think if CNU beats Trinity there, they're in the championship weekend and a possibility of winning a national title against Hope. But listen, we got to see more pieces and see how CNU plays out. I don't think that's an easy one to determine right now. I think any year is a chance for CNU to win a national title. The way they play, the way they recruit, and the way they're able to get teams in there, or the way they are successful against teams. But again, with a wonky schedule and everything else, I think it's a little too early to say right now if this is the year to cut down the nets. Again, Hope's still there too, and that's going to be always the shadow that is cast. You want to know about sponsor updates? Can listeners and followers help? Sponsor and advertising has not been going as we had hoped. We've had a few groups reach out and ask, and we have sent them information. We've not heard back from them. We're trying not to bug them, but we may have to start. But usually if they don't get right back to you, that's not the greatest of signs. We've had some conversations with middlemen about investments. The basic response is we'd love to invest, but not for the whole thing, which makes sense. Can you get other investors? Okay. Well, now we got to go find other investors and see if we can cobble it all together. I'll be honest with you. We've had conversations with others that we know are moving forward. We just don't know what the end result of that is going to be. Yes, listeners and followers can help. First off, we have our t-shirt drive. That is up for another week. It ends on November 30th. Buy a t-shirt or 2 or 10 or whatever you want to buy. There's plenty of options, including a special 30th or 20th season edition. Geez, jumping way too far in advance there. And so look out for that. Get that, and I'll be quiet. There may be some sales coming, so I don't want you to wait because I don't want you to forget. But there's been rumblings from the company we use that there could be some savings out there, but we'll see. I'll be honest with that. When we polled everybody, we had a decent number say, yeah, make sure you have more t-shirts available. And right now, a quarter of those, or in terms of raw numbers, just a quarter of t-shirts have been bought. So if X said, yeah, we'd love to buy a t-shirt, please make them available, and 1/4 of those shirt numbers have been sold, something's wrong. So the Twitter and Facebook and everywhere has the links to those shirts. We'll put them on the show page as well. That's a great way to help us because we get part of the proceeds from that. We do know others who have reached out on Twitter, on both the Hoopsville and my personal account. There's a little button at the top about how you can donate money to us. And there's other ways to do it as well. You're also welcome to just freely reach out to us and ask us what you want to do, and we'll figure it out. Sponsors and advertisers, hint, hint, reach out to us, and we'll send you our packaging as well. And that goes for schools, too. We've had a number of schools who have advertised on this show over the years. Please, if you're interested or a conference is interested, let us know, and we'll find ways to do it. But I'll be honest, it's not going like I had hoped. I don't know if I'm just completely misunderstanding how this works or if I've missed something in some grander scheme. But to say the least, that's why a lot of times the personal things that I need to take care of take priority. With that, we're going to wrap things up. I know we've talked a lot about on the show. We have a big show here to get out the door before Thanksgiving. I want to thank everybody who tuned in and either watched it or listened to it. And of course, I want to thank the Van Zelst twins, Adam and Ryan, for coming on the show. And of course, I want to thank Tahri Phillips for appearing on the show as well. I hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving. We'll get a show out the door next week after Thanksgiving. It may have to be an audio only version. We're going to have to cobble it together as I get focused on D3 soccer championships in Salem, Virginia next week. But after that, we'll try and get back to the mix and maybe do one more live show before the holidays. I haven't decided yet. But again, we're doing these recorded shows for the most part until January. And that's just the way we're doing things. Tried a little different format today. See how that all worked out as well. Not sure if I answered all of your questions out there or if we covered all the topics. It's a big division. It's hard to do, but we'll try and do our best to stay on top of everything we can. We'll do a bit of a reset next week, obviously, as we get our first in-season top 25s as well. I want to thank you for tuning in and watching and listening to Hoopsville. You can follow us on Twitter at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. You can certainly join us on Instagram as well at D3Hoopsville or on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. You can email us if you ever want to as well, Hoopsville at D3Sports.com, or find my personal email address, dave.mchugh at D3Sports.com on D3Hoops.com. And I want to thank D3Hoops.com for their support. I want to thank the NABC as well. And future sport supporters, sponsors, advertisers, whomever, I want to thank you in the future because I'm hoping you're coming on board and we're going to be adding to the list of individuals that we are thanking over time. In that, have a great Thanksgiving, everybody. If you want to talk about Division III basketball, you've got to watch and listen to Hoopsville. And we hope you have a great holiday and look forward to talking to you next week.
This copyrighted broadcast of Hoopsville is a property of DMAC Productions and David McHugh and is intended solely for the private, personal use of our audience. Any other broadcast, rebroadcast, or other use of the descriptions and accounts of this show without the express written consent of Hoopsville and DMAC Productions is strictly prohibited.